So today is an extremely special day. I am so excited to be here with Betty Thompson, who is the former Chief People Officer at Booz Allen Hamilton and also Chair of the Board at SHRM. Betty, thank you so much for taking the time to be here today and to share your wisdom.
I'm happy to be here. It's great. Thanks for including me.
Of course. And so before we start, getting into the heart of this conversation, which is really around how are we going to harness untapped talent and maybe the importance of harnessing untapped talent, I thought I would ask a little bit, about you, if you don't mind. In other words, you care so deeply and so passionately about people. And so is there something that inspired you early on, or something or someone?
Well, I'd have to say it would start with my parents. They both immigrated to the United States from Ireland. They met here in the United States. And my father traveled with his cousin, and my mother traveled with her sister. And they went on a double blind date and ultimately ended up both couples getting married and having big families. And we lived near each other. And my parents were very hardworking. We had 7 kids in the family. My dad always worked several jobs, and just worked really hard to take care of a big family. And my uncle and my aunt also had a big family, but they started a construction business. And I really have to say my aunt was really very much an inspiration for me, or a role model for me, because while she was a full-time mom, she was very much a partner in her husband's business. And at the same time, she was also going to school, because coming, to Ireland when they were, 19 or 20 years old, they didn't have the benefit of a college education. And so she was working, having a big family, taking care of the home, and also going to school. And I used to type her papers for her classes, and she was just doing it all. And so I always thought of her as somebody that, was a role model, because it's hard to think you can aspire to something when when you haven't seen it. And I feel like I saw it with her, the possibility. And so I just felt like I could do that. I could have all of those things: a family, partnership, and a career, and be able to do all of those things.
That is so tremendous. And just what an education, just witnessing that. So that's an incredible story. And so, I was just wondering if going along your amazing career, were there ever any bumps in the road? Where did you get started? And then was it a straight shot up to Chief People Officer, or you want to share a little bit about the journey with me?
Yeah, yeah, it was definitely not a straight shot. I never envisioned myself. I actually really never even had an aspiration to be, the head of an HR organization or be in the C-suite. But I, took advantage of opportunities that came along, and things just kind of worked out that way. But no, I had a number of setbacks. I think everyone does. Times when I sort of doubted myself and whether I was going to be able to do it. One time I remember I was doing really well. I recently come into HR, and I was doing really well, and I was learning a lot. And the head of HR, really liked me. But he had this almost diabolical way of picking on people, and they called it being in the barrel. And everybody was always saying, hey, how come you've never been in the barrel? And I said, I have no idea, but I'm not interested in getting in there anytime soon. But I was working on this project, and I was working really hard on it. I put a lot of effort into it, and I went in to make my presentation to him. And I guess he decided it was my turn to be in the barrel. And I felt like he was, really being unfair. And I really felt defensive. I got upset. I got teary and all of that. In fact, I think I cried all the way home in my car. And I finally just sort of took stock of that and said, I'm letting him do this to me. I don't have to let him do that to me. I'm not going to let him do that to me. I worked hard. If I didn't do it perfectly, that's fine. I'll come back and I'll try again. So I had another meeting with him as a follow-up, and he was really almost put off by the fact that I wasn't still upset or still being defensive or anything. Um, and it actually really helped me because he said, okay, I've never seen anybody recover as well as you did. I'm kind of shocked and impressed. So I took that as a learning that, you can let people do things to you, or you can, take control of it and not have it be something that derails you. Because it was really upsetting at the time. And I just somehow found the courage to just say, no, you're not going to do that to me. Uh, I'd say a couple of other times that were setbacks is I have 4 kids. And my first setback was when I had my first child. I was working in a new area, and I came right back to work after 6 weeks after I had my son, and he was having a lot of health issues. He just seemed to have one thing after another at the daycare center. And I was always having to, call in and say, I'm going to be late. I've got to take my son to the doctor, this kind of thing. And it just became overwhelming. And my husband and I sat down and we talked about it, and we decided, that I would have to quit. And so I went in and I told my manager, I said, I feel terrible. I don't feel like I'm doing a good job at home. I'm not doing a good job here. And I'm going to give you my notice. I'm going to leave. And fortunately for me, he said, no, I don't think so. and he said, here's what I want you to do. I want you to take as much time as you need off to figure this out. And if you come back and say, I can't figure it out, then I'll accept it then. But I want to give you the space, because you're just, you're shuttling from place to place. You're not really having the time to figure it out. And he said, I want to give you that time. And it took me all of 5 days to find the right situation for my son. And I came back to work, and I stayed there this was at IBM. I stayed there for 18 years. I had all 4 of my children there. So it was, but it was definitely something where I was willing to walk away. And then the next time was when I had my 4th child, because I had my 3rd, and I actually took about 6 months off. And this was actually when I was going into HR. I had gotten an offer to come into the HR department, and I was 2 weeks from returning to work and found out I was pregnant. And I'm like, okay, who works with 4 kids and all of these all the things that I have to do? And so I went to my aunt, the one I told you about earlier. And I said, I don't know what I'm going to do. I'm pregnant. I don't think they signed up for this when they offered me this position. And how am I going to do this with, 4 kids? And she said, you can do it and I'll help you. And she had somebody come in and help clean every week for me. And she was just there to say, whatever I can do to help you. And not everybody was doing that for me. A lot of people were saying, no, you're going to have to quit. Yeah, you can't do it. You got to go part-time, this kind of thing. But I hung in there, and I had my 4th child, and I came back to work, and again continued to have some success. But it was hard to come to that decision with all the different things. But I had support. Another setback was when I had joined Booz Allen, and I had been added to the firm's leadership team, and that was all very new to me. And I was the only woman in the room most of the time. And my son had been deployed to Iraq. He was in the military. And I didn't realize how much that was affecting me in terms of my ability to concentrate and be at my best. And I did a presentation at the leadership team, and it did not go well. and they, I didn't have the benefit of, oh, they've known me for 10 years. And so they know what I can do. This is just a bad day. And so I was pretty distraught about how poorly I had done. And I went to my boss, and I said, I know that was terrible. I was not at my best, and I'm not sure why. And he said, Betty, you have a lot going on in your life, and your son was just deployed. It's okay. It's okay. We're gonna get through this. We'll do it again. I'll sit with you before we go in, make sure that you're comfortable. But I thought that was going to be the end of my career when that happened. So there's just a couple of those, but there's plenty. I feel like you learn so much from those, and you learn a lot about yourself when you go through those. That certainly is what I took away from that.
Well, thank you so much for your transparency. There's so much wisdom in everything that you just shared, but I'd like to really spotlight the fact that, you are admittedly not perfect. And obviously that just the importance of keep going, and also really the importance of having help and having a role model. And, when you were in the barrel, that sounded like a terrifying experience, but you sounded very resilient, even without possibly even knowing to the extent. It was probably ingrained from you for what you witnessed and how you grew up and all of those things. And so I just want to really appreciate your transparency, and also some of the gold nuggets and wisdom there. And that is being resilient, even if you feel like you're in the barrel. I think most people have experienced that before, but it's not that it seems like what separates world-class performers from everyone else is how we respond and how we recover. And it was amazing that you recovered so quickly. And gosh, really having your aunt step in and having someone really say, you can do this, I got you. So for everyone listening, you may not have the gift of having an aunt or a family member or a mentor, but maybe start thinking about your support system and how you add value to other people, but also who you might could benefit from bringing in closer to kind of step in as an aunt. When I say as an aunt, I mean, it's just like an amazing support system like your aunt was. And so going forward, then when we talk, we're going to transition now into the topic that is so fascinating to me. And we were talking before we went live of, my third child, my daughter, just recently graduated from college a year and a half ago, a private University of San Diego. And at some point we were talking about the cost of college is going to get prohibitive. And it seems like the trend could very well be into really more seriously looking at skill-based hires, and not thinking of a college degree as the bare minimum that someone, starts from. And so can you share a little bit about your experience with this form of untapped talent, where it's going, and what leaders should really seriously consider now?
Yeah, and I really appreciate having this opportunity to talk about this, because I think it's just really, really important for the reasons that you said, as well as others. There's a lot of talent gaps across the United States in particular, and really even across the world. And there are jobs that aren't getting done, things that aren't being accomplished because of the shortages that we have in the workforce. And to your point, it's only going to get worse because of the cost of an education. It is also going to be less diverse because of the socioeconomics that are a reality in this country. And so eliminating the requirement for a college degree for most positions. And I love it when people say, yeah, I want a doctor operating on me that didn't go to medical school. That's the extreme. There are clearly specific roles that need a college degree and more. I'm not talking about those. I'm talking about a lot of the jobs that are out there today that can be filled without having a college degree. And that's not to say, I mean, I have a college degree. I want my kids, I want my kids to have that. I think it's important, but I think we need to recognize it's not realistic for a lot of people. And it's, like you said, only going to get worse because of the continuing rise in the cost of it. The other thing is the speed of technology and the innovation that is happening. The universities can't keep up with that. It just moves just too fast, and it's never going to be this slow again. So the skill requirements that these technologies are creating have to be met, and they can be met with a lot of different varieties that don't include a college degree. There's boot camps, there's community colleges, there are tech schools and programs. there's online, there's certification, and there's on the job experiences that people have gained by the work that they're doing. And these people have learned in different ways, but they still have the ability to perform on the job. And we really need more of those people to come into the workforce to fill these opportunities. And it's good for the country and good for our economy for people to have good jobs. Because, you know, I hadn't completed my college degree when I went into IBM, but I was able to get them to pay for it because my parents had 7 kids to put through Catholic schools and colleges, and my mother wasn't working. My dad was holding, you know, 3 really blue collar jobs. And so, you know, it was great for me to get a job where they would actually help pay for all of that. And that's, you know, if we can create those good opportunities at good companies, we can have more people that are able to do the job. But if they desire to get a college degree, they can do it, you know, in a more supportive way. But it's also critical for organizations to focus on skills, skill building, reskilling, having that culture of, you know, lifelong learning, because it benefits them to have people that are already there that they know that they can invest in. They can have benefits that cover the tuition, like I talked about. We expanded at Booz Allen our tuition program or our reimbursement program to cover certifications, online courses, even conferences where there was learning, boot camps, all of those things. Not all organizations have gone beyond the tuition reimbursement for college credits, and I think that's a really important thing for us to be doing. There's also internal training programs that can be invested in, apprenticeship programs. All of these are really important to have a workforce that can drive the success of an organization at the speed that we need it. And then when you think about AI, and we know that work is going to change and jobs are going to be impacted, and getting the workforce ready will create more buy-in by investing in them and letting them know what's coming, what skills are going to be required, will be good for the employees you already have as well, so that they can take advantage of the AI benefits that come with that, and take some of the fear out of it if they know that there's going to be an investment in helping them to transition into new roles or gain skills that they don't already have. So there's just I'm really passionate about this because I just think there are too many people that are being prevented from contributing to organizations. I think they'd be more loyal because they're going to get the benefit of the doubt in terms of them being able to do the job. And I've just seen too many times how effective people can be, hardworking people can be, having gained skills in other ways. You want people that can perform. You don't need that perfect candidate with the perfect degree. I will say also that when people require a degree, it's often a very specific degree, and that again leaves a lot of people out. I know when I was at Fannie Mae, we were, you know, it was really hard to find technical people because it was, you know, during Y2K and a lot of technology changes that were happening. And we were looking for people that had economic degrees or they had music degrees, because we would invest in the training because we knew they had some core capability or aptitude, if you will, to be able to learn technology. So there's a lot of different ways to go at this, but focusing on skills, and then how you can identify the skills you already have in your workforce that you can build on for the needs that you have, but also that to broaden your talent pool, to find people that have skills, and then create the pathways for them to continue to develop the skills that you're going to continue to need. People have talked about workforce planning forever. I've never seen anybody do a really great job at it, but it is more critical now than ever for people to be really thinking about how much the workplace is going to change, what jobs are going to change, what skills are going to be required, and how can you tap the talent you have as well as a broader pool of talent that's out there.
Yeah, I love that there's just, again, so many things that you brought up that are so important, that they're good for your people, but also good for business. And especially when you brought up about AI, because from a high performance standpoint, you know, one thing that will derail productivity and ultimately profitability is fear and worry. So with the lack of transparency and just having a minimal understanding of AI, and because what is human beings from a psychological standpoint, we go negative, right? We don't think
Absolutely.
about, wow, imagine the possibilities for me with AI coming. We think about, is my job going to be eliminated? And we just tend, it's just as humans, we tend to go negative. And so I love what you mentioned about that transparency, and also thinking about how can companies be more transparent about what's coming with AI, how are people impacted, but also what are the opportunities going to be? Because at the end of the day, I mean, AI is amazing and really helpful in so many different ways, but it is not infallible. It is not human. And if people can understand and have clarity around what it is, what's coming, what does it mean, and how can they be upskilled, and how is a company willing to upskill them, and then really uncovering this untapped talent. I think you're absolutely right that it's going to create some sense of control, but also some sense of loyalty that ultimately will be so productive and profitable in the long run.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And so going forward on this topic, what it sounds like you were talking about the rise of skill-based learning, but also upskilling current workforce. And so which do you think, it sounds like they're both important, but if you had to rank them in order, if that's not a totally unfair question, which one would you say is most important for an organization to do first?
I think it depends on where the organization is. If they're in a hyper growth mode, they're going to need to be bringing a lot of people into the organization. So broadening that external talent pool is really important. But I do think that having the focus on the people you already have, I would probably rank a bit above that, only because you're creating that safety net and that culture that makes people feel like they matter, and that will also attract great talent. And so I think getting your own house in order, where your current employees feel like that you care about them, that you're investing in them, they're going to give that much more. They're going to bring their friends to work there. They're going to be speaking positively about the organization, building a great reputation that will attract talent. So I think that, getting the internal, I would rank a little bit ahead of that, so that the people you already have, and then you're also then bringing people into an organization that's ready to continue to support people in their career, and ready to have them see that there are pathways and that there are investments that are made in them to ensure that they can have, a prosperous career and that they have a future there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, 100%. And one thing, when you were also speaking about that this gap is going to be further created, as colleges are, 50, 60, 70, 80,000 plus dollars a year, that there's just going to be a bigger gap between the haves and have-nots, the people who can have a college education and the people that do not have access to a college education. And as that gap widens, it seems like companies could be at risk for kids that feel entitled to that college education, who perhaps aren't used to really fighting for something. And I'm just thinking about that. I have a neighbor who brought in a relative. He is from Cuba. He started off working at Target. He was more than thrilled to have a temporary holiday job last year, and he was the first one there, the last one to leave. He did whatever needed to be done, and he's since gotten his citizenship, and he's on track to be a manager. And he is so grateful to the core.
Yeah.
To have this role, and he will do whatever it takes. He treats his, he now has a small team, and he treats them with kindness and respect. And I just look at how grateful he is and how hard it is. And I'm not saying that people with college degrees and people that are able to get a college education are not going to work this hard, but I'm just speaking to your point that there are so many people within organizations that are so willing to, inside, or maybe not even haven't been hired yet, that are so willing to roll up their sleeves and be amazing employees and potentially future leaders if given the opportunity.
I love that, Sheryl. That's a great story. And I've seen that several times, where there is that gratitude for the opportunity. that they know that they're getting and how hard they work. And I hadn't thought about the entitlement piece that you could create as it becomes, more expensive. But I guess there probably would be that possibility. And I think you need to have people that are really, committed to and grateful to have the opportunity and are going to work really hard. And that's not to say that those aren't the same people that go to college, but I think there's a high likelihood that that's what you're going to get for people that wouldn't ordinarily get that opportunity.
Yeah. And so let's just say that companies or anyone listening who's a leader, or there's not buy-in. So in other words, they're like, no, there's a process. We stick to the process. We're not like, we don't buy into, the conversation that we're having right now as far as, untapped talent, and upskilling, what have you. What do you think in the next 2, 3, 4, 5, 10 years, what do you think is going to be the consequence of not taking action on this?
Oh, I think the consequences are going to be quite significant. They're going to be a shortage of people to do the work. They're going to overburden the people that are doing the work because they are going to have more work than they can humanly do. So you'll have burnout, you'll have turnover. You will also have less diversity. And we know that more diverse organizations do better and they perform better because they have multiple perspectives. They're more inclusive in terms of the way that they're thinking about it, whether it's their customer base or a process. So I think there's going to be major consequences if they don't think about this the right way and that they don't invest in their people, because the smart companies are going to do it. And that's where the good people are going to go. And so they're going to lose the ability to attract the talent. They're going to lose the ability to retain them. And the ones they retain are probably not going to be very happy. And so they'll be less productive. So I think there's lots of consequences to not thinking about this the right way.
Yeah. And I think if you translate this into dollars and cents across companies across the United States, we're looking at hundreds of millions, if not billions of dollars for not taking action. And so for those listening, and if someone's listening, having an aha moment or thinking of, well, I understand this, we've started this, or I haven't started, but I know I need to, where is the best place if they were to hire you as a consultant to come in and just say, what do we do first? How do we get our ducks in a row? How do we start to build this infrastructure? What do we do? What top 3 things or top 3 pieces of advice would you give?
I would say that really understand what the skills are that you need now and that you are going to need, so that you can be very clear about what you're looking for. Then you can use AI and other tools to better define what those skills are that aren't as obvious. So there's some, like I said, a music major makes a very good candidate for learning technology. And you can use AI to find those things. And you can also use AI to identify people that are in jobs that you are going to need more of, to find out what experiences they have. Because it's always funny to me, you go and say, okay, well, who's the best person doing this job? And you go to talk to them and they were an English major. They just, but they went to work for a technology company in some capacity and fell in love with technology and started taking courses or getting mentored and had the opportunity and exposure to learn those skills. So are there skills that person has or experience they have that you can look for others that have that and build on it? So really understanding your current workforce deeply, much more deeply than, what their degree is or what the job they currently have. They've had probably a life before they joined you. So understanding more deeply about what they are. And that's not easy, but AI can help. But in making the investment in knowing your current staff and then really understanding what changes that you're going to experience in terms of the skills you're going to need in the future and where you're going to be able to get that. And there are tools out there that can, help with broadening the talent pool externally by leveraging all of the information that's not not so much around searching for resumes and searching for degrees, but really looking for the skills and experiences that you can define as being critical to your future.
So it sounds like really gathering that data on your current workforce.
Current
And I'm
workforce.
also wondering too, would it be really important, as long as you're going to be gathering this data, to add a question or two about what do you love doing? What are you good at? And also, what are you interested in?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Knowing your employees' aspirations is really helpful in terms of when you're looking to find people to do different things in your organization, to know that you've got some people that have some aspirations. It also, for, larger organizations, can help you understand what you need to invest in terms of development. If somebody says, I'd really love to be doing, cyber security, and you have enough people to do that, let's identify the cybersecurity, the best cybersecurity training that you can offer your employees, whether it's internally or externally.
Mm-hmm. And then last question, and I asked this for kind of a selfish reason because I'm curious about it. And that is when you said, be aware not just of current roles, but what roles, like future roles, and what could be coming. I guess this is a two-pronged question. How far out into the future? I mean, and we all know that technology is moving very quickly, but are we talking like a year, 3 years, 5 years, 10 years, 20 years? And then the follow-up question, what is the best way to do that? Is that to have a conversation with, or have, relationships with somebody who is, who has connections or relationships with someone who's on the forefront of what's coming? Someone was telling me about, iPhones are going to be, activated by eyes and all this technology that's happening, which may be common knowledge for a lot of people. But I was like, oh my gosh, I had no idea. So it's also possible that CEOs and leadership teams, we just don't know. We don't
Right.
know. We don't know. And so I guess the question boils down to, how far out into the future should leaders be knowledgeable, and also who is most important for them to build relationships with so they can know what's on the horizon?
Yeah, no, I think you have to be planning 3 to 5 years out. I think anything further than that is, a bit of a stretch in terms of how organizations can actually operate and be realistic about those things. I also think that there's I have this view of, continuous lifelong learning. And so I think being curious, getting out there, reading about what's coming out, talking to people, looking, I mean, even at futurists and people who are really talking about these things, and getting smart about what are the conversations that are happening out there about what the changes are going to be. And obviously it's industry specific, for the most part. You want to focus on what's happening in your industry, who are the luminaries, who are the leading thinkers. And usually there's people within your own organization that are really thoughtful about those kinds of things that you can build a relationship with, to really better understand, what should I be thinking about in terms of the future that the company is going to need, that I can take advantage of and learn more about and be a force for that change.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's so important. And this question was, I was just in San Francisco at a Athena Alliance event where they had a gal on a panel that was the chief impact officer at SpaceX. And so she just kind of made me think about, I consider myself, and like a lot of us consider ourselves visionary, but compared to what they're thinking about, our minds can always be broadened. And so I love what you're saying about the importance of just staying on the forefront of that, investing first in our current, workforce, being open to the hiring process, being a little bit more non-traditional and more focused on, the needs of the future. And finally, is there anything that you would like to leave us with as far as a call to action?
Well, I think that the call to action is to really be open to these changes and understand what's going to happen to your organization. Be thinking further ahead than you are today. Widen the pool of the talent that you're looking at, and think about the talent that you already have. I think it's always important to surround yourself with people that are better at a lot of things than you are, and to give them the opportunities to be successful and shine by reflected light. So surround yourself with people that are better than you, that are thinking further ahead than you are, and have skills that you don't have.
Yeah. And then what about for people listening that are the talent? I mean, I'm a big proponent of leaning into things that are uncomfortable, or maybe that things that we might want to stick our head in the sand and pretend that they don't exist or they're not coming. But what would be a call to action for those folks who are listening who are the talent?
I think chase opportunity. You started out by saying, did you just have a straight line shot to the chief people officer at Booz Allen? And the reality is, I never chased a role. I chased opportunities. So when I was asked to lead a reorganization at a company and turn over 75% of the leadership and bring in a whole new set of leaders and benefits and everything else, it was pretty scary. But I think you're not learning if you're not a little bit scared about opportunities. And so, take those opportunities. Don't chase a role, chase the opportunities that you're given. Because I learned from every one of them, even ones that I really was like, I don't really want to do that. And I don't really think I can do that. But every time I learned a ton. So take on things that make you a little scared. And if they don't make you a little nervous, then you're probably not going to learn as much and you're not going to grow as much.
All right. Well, that is amazing, amazing advice. So there you have it. Chase opportunities, not a role, and really take action on the things that scare you a little bit. It sounds like you were very comfortable existing outside of your comfort zone. So thank you, Betty Thomas. You're definitely someone who not just has amazing nuggets of wisdom to share, but you really walk the walk. And congratulations on all of your success and your continued success with SHRM. And I really appreciate your contribution to the podcast.
My pleasure. Thank you, Sheryl.